Welcome, boils and ghouls, to the Cryptique Podcast. My name's Kenny, and I'm here with my co-host, Godden. And together, we're here to watch and review every horrific, often hilarious episode of the legendary HBO anthology series, Tales from the Crypt. Here we are, everybody. Godden, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Kenny. Doing well.
Good. We are here today to talk about Season 2, Episode 13, Korman's Kalamity, which aired June 26th, 1990, and it comes to us from the actual Tales from the Crypt comic. So it's another Tales from the Crypt, Godden. Not a shock suspense story again. Not that those are bad, but it's just, I want some Tales from the Crypt sometimes, Once again, my name's Kenny, and if you want more of me blabbing on about things, there you can find it online. You can go to 2 Bad About Kenny. That's with the number 2 Bad About Kenny, as well as TOO Bad About Kenny on Twitch and YouTube, where I review movies and books. I also play video games on Twitch. So I'm definitely out there to be found if you're interested. Godden, how about you?
Well, if they're interested in checking me out, I do stream on Twitch at UAPP06. I do look forward to playing the Silent Hill F game that comes out this week for me. So hopefully I can get that going, because I'm still debating if I want to get on the console or my computer, because I just don't want to deal with optimization. I just want to plug and play and kind of get to it. And if they want to reach out to us specifically, they can find us at our Twitter at Cryptikers, and there they can keep up with our updates or interactions.
Thanks, Godden. And I am with you on streaming through consoles as opposed to PC. I have a PC that can absolutely run games, and I do play on PC, but when I stream, I try to primarily do it on console, because I just let the console do all the hard work while my computer focuses on just uploading all the content. So when I stream, it's also usually through a console. Well, you know what? Here's the thing, though. You can find us out there in the world if you're interested, but you're not here for that right here, right now. You're here to hear us talk about Tales from the Crypt. So let's go. And as we go into this episode, I do want to give you all a warning, okay? We are not experts, Godden and I, okay? We literally just watch the episode, collect our thoughts, and then we come on here just to kind of blab about it. We're not professionals. This is a hobby, so we're treating it like that. We also want to build a community. So if you want to share as well, you can absolutely use this platform to do that. And I'm usually more than happy to actually read the comments on the episode. So if you have a thought, let us know. Be part of the community. Come on, don't be scared. And we go into great detail on these episodes. So if you haven't seen this episode yet, I strongly recommend you go watch it. Okay, go watch it first and then come on back and hear us blab on about it. So with all that out of the way, let's go into the episode. This is Korman's Kalamity, and this is the official summary. Inked in blood, bound by human flesh, on the back of the DVD box set here. Here we go. And now for his monster piece. Drawings of a Tales from the Crypt cartoonist come to life and death. And that's good. That's all right. That might wet your whistle a little bit for what this episode actually is all about. But let me go ahead and give another recap here, one that I wrote myself that goes into a little more detail. Jim Korman is an artist for the legendary comic book series Tales from the Crypt. Jim Korman's art is also very unique. It comes to life. Perhaps the world would be a better and safer place if he didn't spend all day drawing monsters. So here we go. This is a fun episode, Godden. What are your overall thoughts?
I just want to get into it because I just want to get to like my rating,
This to me is like the amount of fun and silliness in this episode. It's been a while since we've had one that went this far bananas, and it's such a fun. It's a blast of an episode. You know what it reminds me of, and I'm probably going to come to this more throughout the episode. It really reminds me of like a Goosebumps episode, like almost like made for kids. It
Oh,
it does
yeah.
go there. Like you know, if you had some little kids, maybe you don't want to show them this episode. But when I was a kid, this would have been one that I really, really enjoyed watching. There's just a lot of silliness and cartooniness to it that makes it enough. You know, it makes it fun enough to really watch it and just in a Goosebumps way. You know what I mean? It's just fun over the top campiness, but it's so much fun. There is some gore in there. I don't think there's profanity, but there's definitely some gore in there, but not over the top, but enough to have a lot of fun with this. The opening has the Crypt Keeper drawing, and it's like it's one of those drawings where it's like a drawing of a drawing of a drawing, and it keeps zooming out. So the Crypt Keeper's drawing the Crypt Keeper on the page, but then it zooms out, and that Crypt Keeper was actually another drawing another Crypt Keeper. It just keeps coming out until you see the Crypt Keeper, the real Crypt Keeper, drawing the Crypt Keepers. So it's this real like meta way of starting the episode, which really is a great intro to this episode, because this is probably the most meta that Tales from the Crypt has gotten to, where it's very aware of itself. It's actually in the episode itself, like the comic book artist, the main character is an artist for Tales from the Crypt. So they had fun with this intro. I liked it. I liked it a lot. So the Crypt Keeper says, "Oh, hi there, fright fiends. How do you like my rancid rendering? Not bad for an amateur. Hopefully it will give you an inkling of what tonight's fungusy photoplay is about, because long before my eerie offerings appeared on your silver screen, they were a magazine called, get a load of this, Tales from the Crypt." And I wonder, like now it's so much, Tales from the Crypt is so much in the zeitgeist that people just know it comes from a comic. At least if you're like a remote kind of a fan of Tales from the Crypt, you'll know that it comes from a comic book series. But back then, you know, it might not have been as apparent. So an episode like this really does kind of, you know, I guess exploit that, or really present that in a way that made it more apparent to fans. So the episode starts with the opening panel, and this is also a really good opening panel. It's Jim Korman sitting at his desk, and he's drawing a kind of a romantic picture, right? But then behind him is just a bunch of, you know, like werewolves and monsters and zombies and two-headed ghouls and a dinosaur, like all kinds of things, all kind of scattered behind him. And I mentioned last week that I didn't remember this episode, but the moment I saw this opening panel, I was like, oh, it's this episode. I didn't recognize the title. This episode's a really good giveaway, right? This artist, obviously, a lot of his drawings are coming to life and they're kind of behind him. And that's what this presents really well. They did a good job on that. I like this opening panel. It immediately reminded me of what this entire episode is about.
No, I honestly just like the art style. It's very simple. I do like how everything's in green and blue to be like ghoulish and just like more monstery colors. And why is like here bright red, like the little 90s pattern all over it. So
Yeah.
I did enjoy the panel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he's dressed in a very cartoony 1990s cartoony childish shirt. Yeah, and him and the drawing he's drawing are all done in very like just basic lit colorings, but then everything in the background is that dark blue green hue kind of thing going on. So yeah, everything that's part of the fantasy world is definitely drawn in a different color. That's pretty neat. That's a nice touch. So scene one, we're in a studio, and it turns out to be the Jim Korman studio. It's his like office area, and there's like a pan across his shelves behind him, and there's all kinds of like horror props and drawings. There's even like a Tales from the Crypt box set of a bunch of different volumes from the magazine. So it really paints a picture that, you know, this is kind of a big horror fan and also a Tales from the Crypt fan. And while it's panning across, by the way, there's a love song playing, Just My Imagination by the Temptations. I thought that was kind of like a double entendre going on there. We had, right, it is an episode about just his imagination, right? Things that he imagines, he draws, and then they come to life. It's kind of the theme of the episode. But also the fact that it's a love song, like he loves what he does. He loves all this horror stuff. He loves drawing. He loves a lot of this type of stuff. So automatically he's a character I can relate to, because I really love, you know, I have a big love for horror stuff as well. So I did like the intro. So Corman's at his desk and he's drawing, and there's two men behind him. I guess they're his co-workers, and they're kind of exchanging ideas back and forth about different comic book plots. Do you remember any of the plots that they were discussing at this point?
Yeah. I was trying to like remember if it's something we've seen, but it wasn't. And most of the time they were just kind of saying like random twists, like, oh, what if a doctor that lost his appendage, or there's just something silly, and they just keep one-upping each other, like, and yeah, nothing. I thought there was gonna be like some sort of Easter egg, but yeah, nothing came to light. Realistically, they were just having fun.
Yeah, I meant to go back and write down what specifically their ideas were, but I kind of, it's such a small part of the episode, to be honest with you, I forgot about it. But I did mean to go back and hear some of their ideas. But it's fun to hear them kind of excitedly go back and forth, like, oh, what if we had, this type of monster doing this type of thing? It's one of those types of conversations. They're interrupted. This woman barges into the office. She scares the two men away. They both run into their little offices. And Corman's just there, busy working. And this woman walks up to him. This woman turns out to be his wife. And she says, "It's Saturday. What are you doing here? Why aren't you home?" And he's like, "Honey, I've got to work. I'm busy." And she basically is accusing him of like sleeping around and flirting with the secretaries who are in the office. She says, "It's not enough. You got to draw these dumb cartoons instead of getting a real job. You can't even keep your paws off the goddamn secretaries in this office." So she hates his job. She is accusing him of having an affair, and she just despises this man. So I don't know why they're together, but I don't know. She just loves being verbally abusive to people.
Or just to him.
Oh yeah, just to Korman, poor guy. Well, apparently, I don't know. She scared those other two men away. Maybe she's already yelled at them. And she also, complains that he can't even give her children. So he's taking these pills, and who knows if they're working, right? But basically, he's taking these pills to help have a baby. But at the same time, Corman's also worried that the pills are affecting his imagination, because he's drawn this whole picture, but there's a monster that needs to be drawn in the middle of the page, and it's just blank. Like he can't quite draw it. And it's not until after the wife leaves that he kind of like, he's upset. So he starts to feverishly draw this monster in the middle. So yeah, something is up with his imagination. He's not able to really draw on his own. He needs inspiration. And it's interesting that while he's drawing these monsters throughout this entire episode, he gets the inspiration from his wife, who he absolutely despises, and she despises him. It's interesting that they're together, but that's kind of how it is. Oh, and before she does leave, I do like that she says, "You're stuck with me till death do us part." And she gives a little like a little shake of her head before she storms out of the office. I did like that moment.
I enjoyed how like bitchy they made her. Like she like off the bat. Well, actually, what I remember is before she enters the office, the little shadowy figure knocking. You think it's like a gremlin or like some monster figure, and then it comes through, and then it's like, oh, it's an actual. It's just a woman. It's not anything eerie,
Oh, because you see her shadow first.
Well, because it's behind the door, so it's like her silhouette, and they made it like short and. It just looks like a gremlin with the hat and everything.
Oh.
And with, like long fingers and everything, knocking through. It's like, oh, it's a human.
Yeah. I like that they play with that idea. Yeah. So the next scene is in a laundromat. And there's just, a woman there doing her laundry, and she's just kind of there minding her own business. But then sitting across from her is Korman. He's finished up with his laundry. He kind of stares at her. They kind of have, that little, prolonged eye contact, and then he kind of makes his way out while kind of staring at this woman. I guess it could be in a creepy way, but she was also smiling, so I thought maybe there was a little chemistry there. So he leaves, and that leaves us there with the woman. And this moment right here I thought was an interesting part of the episode, because so far the whole episode's been about Korman, right? And when we start the laundry sequence, it's focused on the woman. Korman actually leaves, and then we're left with the woman. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. We're going to have like two main characters. So I did like the way they shot this. So the woman's doing her laundry, and she pulls out a book. It's clearly a romance book, right? She's reading it's a romance book. I tried to read the title. I don't know if you did too, Godden, but it was definitely wild something. It was wild something, but her finger was kind of covering up part of the book. And the best I can make out of this, Godden, is it was Wild Milk. Did you happen to see what the title of the book was?
I remember seeing the book, but I didn't focus too much on it. I remember it being like blue, but yeah, I didn't see the text.
I don't know exactly what it said. It probably wasn't Wild Milk. That's just the best I can make of it. But yeah, it's definitely a romance book, though. She's absolutely reading a romance book. So while she's kind of alone in the laundry mat, the lights go out and a man approaches and she says, "Oh, can you help out? Can you go check the circuit breaker to see if something blew out?" And he goes, "Oh, that's not necessary. I did it." And he pulls out a knife, like a switchblade, and pops it out. And she starts to back up and she says, "Are you going to hurt me?" And he says, "Yes, ma'am." That was an interesting interaction.
I do like him. He's fun.
Yeah. It was an interesting interaction for what it was, what they were alluding to. But she says, "Do you want to do this? I'm a cop." And she pulls out her badge and he goes, "Where'd you get that? A dime store?" So he goes to grab her, but she actually grabs him and takes him down. She throws him down to the ground, and she throws him down to the ground. He looks up and he says, "Ow." I love the dialogue between these two. So when he gets up, the washer machine explodes open, and then this monster comes out of the washing machine. And it approaches the man, it grabs him, and it actually bites his head off. And this is what I mean, where because the monsters are so colorful and vivid, it's very cartoony, and purposefully so, by the way. But it also does make it seem like it's kind of like a made for kids episode. I mean, he does. It's not though, because the monster does bite the villain's head off and actually spits it down on the ground, and you actually see the severed head there on the ground. So it's not made for kids, but I can see kids enjoying this because the monsters aren't necessarily scary. They're very silly. So there's an interesting tone shift in there that makes this episode a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, you forgot to mention right after she flips him to the ground, and he gets back up. He's like, "That Bruce Lee shit won't work again," or "That won't work a second time." and then yeah, after that, the monster comes out, and she's a cop, so she's worried about him, even though her life's in danger. She's like, behind you, turn around." He's
right.
"Nah, I'm not turning around." It's okay.
Fool me once, lady. Shame on me.
Yeah. I do like the corniness. It's so fun.
Oh yeah, they ham it up in this episode, and much to my chagrin, I love it. And I like the next scene too. So they're still in the laundromat, but there's an investigation going on, and the first thing you see is that outline of the victim on the ground, and there's actually they have a separate outline for the head, slightly next to the body. So they outline the entire body, and they have a little jagged line where the neck is, and then they have somewhere else they have an outline for the head. That was a nice touch. The woman here is Lorelei, right? I think Lorelei is her name.
Lorelei.
I you know what? I wrote it down, Lorelei, but they might have been saying Lorelei in the show. I don't remember how they were pronouncing it. Sorry, actress who played that role. I might be getting your name wrong. I think it's Lorelei or Lorelei. Anyway, the police chief is questioning her, and he says, "Let me get this straight. A monster emerged from the washing machine and gobbled up the assailant?" She says, "That's right, sir." And then, of course, he's doubtful. So she says, "Look, I'm a cop. I don't drink off duty. I don't make up crazy stories." And then the police chief says, "Yeah, neither did the man who saw a two-headed ogre last week, or the housewife who found the dinosaur in her Volkswagen." Just before the scene ends, they're bagging up the body, and he says, "If there was a monster, I've got one thing to say." He looks into the bag, he looks back up, he says, "It's got one hell of an overbite." So the next scene is at a newsstand. They're outside, and Lorelei, now she's actually dressed up in her cop uniform, she's walking by a newsstand, and she actually sees the Tales from the Crypt comics, and she grabs one gets her attention. She grabs it, and she says to herself, "A monster with an overbite." It's the same monster that she saw in the laundromat. Then she grabs another issue, "A two-headed ogre." And then she grabs another issue, dinosaur in a Volkswagen. So she's seeing that everything that's been described so far is actually in these comic books. And she takes one little look at the bottom right corner and she sees that the artist is Jim Korman. So she actually leaves to go pay him a visit, leaving the newsstand, having stolen 3 issues of Tales from the Crypt. And the guy behind the stand's like, "Hey, lady, you gonna pay for those?" What if that was the twist of the episode? She gets arrested.
She gets arrested by the chief.
I wonder, were these actual episodes in Tales from the Crypt? The 2-headed ogre and the dinosaur in a Volkswagen?
I want to say yeah. I want to say those were actual. Like we can look up here in a sec or afterwards, but because those comics they look pretty fleshed out. So maybe I don't know because it says his name in the corner there. It doesn't look like the actual.
Yeah, I wonder if Jim Korman was an actual artist for Tales from the Crypt. How true to life is this episode, I wonder? The following scene, we're back in the studio with Jim Korman, and those 2 men are kind of going back and forth again. And this one I did get. This idea pitch I did get. One of them says, "I got it. A story about a rabid dog, but from the dog's perspective, with foam dripping around the margins." And the other guy says, "Yeah, and little fleas jumping off the page." So they're really getting into their little, ideas. At this moment, while the 2 are talking, the secretary approaches and kind of hands him some papers. And she's, very beautiful with a long flowing blonde hair, very nice body. And when she gives them the papers, the men actually catcall her and like woof, woof, like in the office. Like this poor lady is just trying to do her job. And she's got these, men just oogling at her and like making cat call. Like she knows where you work. She knows where you, she knows your name. She probably knows your wife. And this woman has to endure this. But while this is going on, Jim is busy at his desk and he's working. While he's working, he gets a call and it's from his wife. And you can't really hear what she's saying, but you can hear his responses. And he says, "Oh, hi, honey." And he's very disappointed. He says, "No, the secretaries have all gone home." And at this point, right, the secretary is actually handing him some papers. So he's lying to his wife about the secretary. And really, it's interesting, this scene too, because the wife's so concerned about Jim, being interested in these secretaries when clearly he's not. The other men are. The other men are clearly beside themselves with having a pretty lady working beside them. Jim's just busy with his work. Like he can care less who's giving him the papers or who the secretary is. He just wants to work. He loves his job. We've already established that from the first scene. He loves his job. He loves drawing. That's all he wants to do. It really doesn't matter that there happens to be a pretty secretary giving him the papers. So I like this scene because of the fact that, it did show that it was the other men who were more interested. Jim Korman's just trying to do his job. So he goes on with the conversation. "Yes, I took the pills." And then she keeps going and going and going. And he's like, "Look, would you give me a break?" And he goes to hang up the phone and you can hear her yelling as he goes to hang up the phone. So clearly a bad phone call. He hangs up and then he begins feverishly drawing again. He starts to draw this monstrous figure. And while he's drawing this monster figure, you can see on the wall behind him a shadow of like a monster hand kind of coming out from the darkness. When he's finished with the drawing, he crumples it up and he throws it away. And then at that moment, the hand retreats, it returns back to where it was coming from. So this is where you really start to see his actions have a reaction in the real world. So this is a very, very nice way they did it. It was very, very clean. I like the way they did this.
Because you pretty much pointed out all the main things. If anything, the initial scene when they're talking about the rabid dog idea, I just thought of the new movie that's coming out, Good Boy, which is like a horror movie, but the perspective of a dog. So it's like an adult Courage the Cowardly. Okay, Courage the Cowardly dog, realistically, or Cujo actually. Reminds me of Cujo, so when they meant that. So I thought they were trying to go in that direction when they first were going back and forth.
In the time this episode came out, it would have been right, Cujo, right, would have been the most obvious comparison. But what is this you're talking about? I never heard about this dog movie. What is it?
It comes out this year. It's called Good Boy, and we're gonna be in the perspective of the dog who's trying to save his owners from either ghouls or whatever the horror-esque creatures that we're gonna encounter in the movie. So
I'm interested in this.
Yeah, so I'm excited to take that going to theaters this year. I'm not sure when it comes out. I want to say maybe October,
Oh, okay.
November.
I'm definitely interested in that. You know, it is nice, the streaming world, being able to watch everything through streaming. And I also have the YouTube Advanced where I don't have ads. So it's nice not having to deal with ads everywhere you go. On the other hand, you kind of miss out on stuff like that. I kind of miss out on big upcoming movies. I have to like go out of my way to watch like trailers of upcoming movies on my own, as opposed to just kind of catching them, you know, on TV or, you know, on ads. So yeah, I had no idea this movie was coming out. So the next scene is in Korman's car. It's late at night. He's getting in his car to get ready to go home. And Lorelai is in his car waiting for him. And he says, how'd you get in here? My door's locked. And she doesn't answer him. She starts giving him pieces of paper. Like she says, these are police sketches made from eyewitness reports. And they're basically black and white drawings of exactly his drawings, right? The T-Rex in a car and the two-headed ghoul. And she holds up those drawings, and then she says, and these are recent issues of Tales from the Crypt drawn by you. And she looks hurriedly at one, and then she looks at the other, back and forth, and she says, see any similarities? I like this moment. This little head tilt back and forth I thought was really funny. She says, I think your drawings are coming to life. Just popping in from the Twilight Zone. That was a good way to put it. It was very, very Twilight Zone-y episode. He's doubtful, of course. She basically talks him into going back up into his office and drawing a monster so she could see that, you know, look, your drawings are coming to life. So upstairs, he is drawing and she's kind of pacing the office, just kind of waiting for him to be done. And while she's pacing back and forth and he's drawing, he actually takes a photo of his, you know, him and his wife and actually turns it down so she can't see it. So he's trying to hide the fact that he is married. So at this point, yeah, maybe he is up to a little no good, but given his wife is so just foul to him, you can definitely understand where he's coming from. So he draws a zombie coming out of a refrigerator. That's his drawing. And they look at it together, but nothing happens. And then while they're waiting, Korman makes a move. He actually, you know, grabs her shoulder, moves in, and they kiss. They kiss, and she kind of pulls away and starts to walk away. And she says, you know, maybe I have more questions for you. And he says, well, maybe we could talk about that over dinner. So he's definitely making a move, this Korman guy. What do you think about that?
Yeah. When you said he put down like his wedding photo, he actually grabbed it and dropped it in the trash can. That's what actually happened. He's like looking at her and he's like, whoosh.
Okay, so he actually put her in the trash. Oh, that's so much better. That's so much better than what I saw. I didn't notice that part. I think I just, in my mind, I was like, okay, he's going to turn it down. And then I didn't really pay much attention to it. But yeah, he puts it in the trash.
He does. I enjoy their dynamic, their exchange of dialogue, because also with the last scene with the car, yeah, when she's like, holding things up like this, and then she like lets go and grabs another thing in their hand, like it was just like she always had something going on. Like I enjoy that so much. But yeah, with this scene with him drawing and then them going to a kiss, he mentions you know, he's getting burnt out from drawing monsters all the time. Then he's like, oh, I can pivot to like drawing romance. And then he compliments her. He's like, oh, you know, like a sweet and you know, beautiful romantic tale. And then obviously he's talking about her, and then that's when they kiss.
Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah, when he's with his wife, he just wants to draw monsters all the time, right? And whenever he talks to his wife, he then like feverishly starts drawing monsters. But you're right though, when he's with her, he does want to make that pivot, and he does start drawing more romantic pictures. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the next scene is in an abandoned warehouse, and we're kind of following a group of kids, and they're just kind of playing war in this giant warehouse. They got their little guns, they're running around, you know, boom, 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 kind of playing their little games. I don't know if you did this as a kid, but I absolutely was jumping around on things and play fighting. And when I was a kid, actually, we had this neighbor. They had a big hunk of property, and they actually had horses. So I'd go over to their house and we would climb up on the bales of hay and we would jump from the bales of hay onto the ground, acting like a giant explosion happened. So whenever I see scenes like this of kids running around and playing, I always think back to being in that giant barn, climbing up on bales of hay and like shoving bales of hay over and then jumping over them for explosions. Anyway, that just brought me right back to my childhood. I can totally relate to these kids. So the youngest boy is not allowed to play with the guns. He's kind of walking around being bored while his older brothers are out playing. And he comes across a fridge. He hears something inside the fridge, so he calls his brothers over. He calls his brother and his friends over, and they open the fridge. And what should come out but the zombie that Korman had drawn the previous night? And this is another example of just making this seem like a kid's show. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The way the zombie, because it's in daylight, it's not dark, it's not scary, right? But the zombie, the makeup effects were good. They weren't scary. So, and even like the way it moans, it just sounds like some dude in a costume moaning. So that part wasn't scary either. The kids all scream and they run away, and you get this lingering shot on the zombie as it kind of walks, kind of lumbers towards the camera. It's not scary. It's fun though. This is so fun. And it's absolutely, this scene could have been in that Goosebumps episode. But what did you think about this zombie scene?
I thoroughly enjoyed it when the ooze starts coming out in the fridge. And he's like, ew. And then he calls his friends over, and then you can see everyone that were in the play fighting with the guns. They're all like, ugh, what does he want? They like storm over, like, what do you want? What do you need? And then after the whole trade of conversation, I forget, did that one kid die? Did he get eaten by the zombie, or did he run with the
no, yeah, no kids died in the filming of this episode. They just all ran away screaming.
Because at the end of that scene, my favorite moment is when the little kid runs away. He's like, "Remember, I found him."
That's right. Just in case we get to keep this zombie as a pet, I'm the one who found him.
I found him. Okay, sure.
That's cute.
Sure, Timmy.
That's cute. Yeah, because a zombie coming out of a fridge, right? That could have been a horrific episode. You could have had, like, I don't know, a couple, right? Like an older couple some night having dinner or something like that, and they go to the fridge and the zombie comes out and kills one of them. You could have made that a much more horrific scene. The fact that you decided to have it be a bunch of kids in broad daylight, it tells me like they made a conscious decision to make this episode not scary but fun, and I'm okay with that. I had a blast with this episode. So the next scene is we're back in the studio. We're back in Korman's office, and he's at this point drawing a very romantic scene of a couple eating dinners, and this is him and Lorelai kind of sitting, staring at each other, eating a nice romantic dinner together. And at this point, he gets a call, and it's from Lorelai, and he goes, "Hello." Oh, and he gets all lightened up, and his mood clearly shifts. He's happy. He goes, "I was just thinking of you too. I know a nice secluded spot. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes." And he goes to hang up the phone, and who should be standing right behind his desk but his wife? So he's busted basically. And she's onto him. She says, "You're gonna meet up with a tramp, aren't you?" So she storms off. She leaves. And at this point, he's upset again. So he grabs his pencil and he starts drawing feverishly again, a monster. And this time the monster is his wife. Like it's her, but she's a monster, and she's even wearing the same clothes. When the wife returns, she actually pulls a gun on him. He's like pointing a gun at him. And at this moment, the monster like jumps out from behind the hallway. It's wearing the same ridiculous like blue and white outfit that the wife was wearing. She's even wearing like a blue and white matching day hat, and the monster's wearing that stupid hat. But I like how this scene progresses because the monster is coming at Korman, right? It's like has his arms out and it's approaching Korman, and Korman's kind of backing up. But the whole time this is happening, the wife's not trying to save him. She's not trying to help in any way. She's just like constantly berating the monster. She's like, "What is this rancid heap of garbage? What an eyesore. Why don't you feed it a laxative and put it out of its misery? Try some skin lotion, zit face. Your complexion could scare a proctologist." Get out of here, you slimy, smelly pile of pus. She just won't let up. So much so that the monster actually like forgets about Korman and starts going after her. So this woman really brought it on herself. So the monster grabs the wife and the two fight. And basically while this is going on, Korman just walks out and meets Lorelai. And Lorelai's like, what is all that commotion in there? He goes like, oh, they're just doing some remodeling. They get into the elevator and away they go while the wife's just being killed by this monster.
I like this ending scene because it reminds me of the first opening scene where now we were just met with her silhouette in the background, but now being attacked by the monster at the same time. So I'm like, oh, look at that. She started as a silhouette, she ends as a silhouette. I was like,
nice. I did not realize that. And on the other side of the door, right?
Yeah, other side of the door, yep.
Yeah.
You just see like the bright through the curtain or blinds. Not curtain, but yeah. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. And so he before was trapped inside with her out. And then by the end of it, he's outside and she's in and with the same silhouette. Oh, I like that, Godden. That's really, really nice. Yeah, you're right. I like that too. I like how they had that done. And the last scene, of course, is at dinner. Jim and Lorelai are on their date and they're sitting at a table staring at each other lovingly, just as Korman had drawn it in the first place. And she asks, so are you married? And he says, not anymore. And that's the end of the episode. And we go back to the Crypt Keeper, who says, well, how was that for a sappy ending? Was it a little too graphic for you? Oh, well, next thing you know, Jim and his new gal pal will be walking down the easel together. As for poor Mildred, she learned that death imitates art too. Maybe if she'd been nicer to him, she wouldn't have ended up a monster piece. Oh, the wife's name was Mildred, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, this was an interesting episode. It's so the main character was not sinful in a way like typical Tales from the Crypt episodes would be, and the main character didn't necessarily get his comeuppance, but he did he was rescued by the premise of the episode. That was interesting. I thought to make it more in line with Tales from the Crypt, with having that dark twist come in, I thought it would have been interesting if at dinner they're like, staring at each other lovingly, but then as the camera pulls away, maybe you'll see that the monster had escaped and was like right behind them or something like that, right? It never came back to get him, like the episode. Nothing ever came back to get Korman. He just kind of he got away with everything, which I thought was a little too sappy, like the Crypt Keeper had said. It was a little too saccharine. So I think I would have preferred it to be a little darker at the end, but you know what? It's not going to take away from my enjoyment of the episode. I loved this episode, so I just thought that the ending was a little misaligned with how a Tales from the Crypt episode would typically go.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Maybe the way I thought about it was maybe because he created them, they come to life. They kind of like know who the creator is, so they don't want to like. Well, I mean, maybe the last monster was gonna do something, but it's based off his wife, so maybe that's why it was initially going to him. But maybe that's why they don't want to hurt him. It's like that's their dad, that's their creator. They brought them to this world.
Yeah,
maybe they have more brothers and sisters.
I see what you mean. Okay. Or maybe an interesting twist would have been if this had gone like a Death Note route, where he realizes he has his power, so he starts drawing monsters with the intent of taking out people that he thinks are evil or mean, and then that kind of maybe would snowball or kind of get out of control. Maybe that would have been an interesting approach. But there's only so much you can do in a half hour, realistically.
I can only imagine the storyboarding for this whole episode must have been just really fun, because they came up with a banger, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, this is I'm looking forward to getting to the rankings too, because I'm really curious what you're going to give this, because the cat's out the bag, you guys. I like this episode a lot, so we'll see what score this gets when we get there. But I did want to talk a little bit about this. Reminded me of a lot, by the way. When thinking about the whole idea of drawings coming to life, or things that you write down coming to life or coming into reality, a lot came flooding to me. Harold and the Purple Crayon. That was a book that I used to read as a kid, and everything he drew would come to life. So that definitely harkens to something like this. That movie, Stranger Than Fiction. Remember that one with what's his face?
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Remember, he's like a character in somebody else's work of fiction. I already mentioned Death Note, right? If you write someone's name down, then that kind of affects reality. The Dark Half by Stephen King. The main character creates a character, a work of fiction, and then that character ends up coming to life. Page Master, The Never-Ending Story. There's a lot that kind of do with this premise, and I gotta tell you, I like most of the stuff. I think this is a good premise. And even something like Cool World, it's not necessarily a character in the show creating the characters. It's the idea of cartoons kind of living, something animated living with the real world. So I feel like that kind of was similar to it. Even Click came to mind with Adam Sandler. Not because he's drawing stuff, but because he's able to manipulate the real world using something, right? In this case, using like a remote control. So a lot came flooding to me when I was thinking about how this related to other things in the real world. I guess the premise is just so like delicious. The premise is just so interesting that you can really, there's a lot out there that are similar to this, but it doesn't feel like it's oversaturated. I would like more of this type of stuff.
I agree. And, it's actually crazy you listed more than what I thought of. I only thought of one reference, basically. It was a Nickelodeon show called Chalk Zone. And I think it might be like the Purple Crayon, where he just draws and it comes to life. But he goes to the chalk world, and whatever he draws, he can use, and that was the main tropes he had. But yeah, you mentioned way more than I would have thought. Like Click is so funny. I would not have thought of Click to be like a reference point.
Yeah, it's they really. I mean, I couldn't stop myself. I just kept thinking, oh, and this, and then that, and then there's this. So yeah, it's just. I guess I like this premise more than I thought I did. I guess I just learned something about myself. I really like this premise of drawings and writings coming to life. Even the comic book theme of the episode. Like, I don't know if you noticed this, but during certain transition scenes, it would actually transition as if it was a page turning. So the whole episode being inside of a comic book reminded me of Crypt Show too, because Crypt Show is a horror anthology movie based on a comic book. So there's a lot going on here that I absolutely admired and loved. I feel like they did a good job at really paying respect and showing a lot of love to the comic book world and just the artistry of it. So absolutely banger of an episode, Godden. I want to get to reviews, unless you have anything else to say about what it's similar to.
I'm good for reviews. I was just kind of sad that you beat me to the punch, and because I forgot to mention the transitions. Like, yeah, those were so fun to see, like the page flip.
So Godden, it's not going to be much of a surprise, even though the ending I felt like was a little too saccharine, a little too kind of sweet lovey-dovey for me. I would have liked a little more of a twist, a little tinge of, oh no, at the end. I would have liked that. I'm still going to give this a 5. If you're going through this show, this is an episode that you absolutely need to watch. This is a must watch in the world of Tales from the Crypt. So don't skip on this one. This is one you got to watch. Well,
no surprise either. I also give it a 5. It was so fun. It was so fun. I just want to rewatch it, Just watch it again, Kenny.
Do you remember like the first half of this season, maybe the first quarter of the season was just like love story after love story after love story. Remember this?
It's another love story.
This is another one. They could have used this episode much earlier to break up the monotony of, because they were very, very samey. I felt this episode has so much style, and just the love story is almost like, oh yeah, it's a love story too, kind of a thing. Like you don't really pay attention to it because the premise is so fun and the other scenes are so fun. Even the other characters, the two people who work with him, who just kind of go back and forth and talk about different comic book. I would have liked more scenes with them. Just what other ideas do they have? I want maybe a scene with them where they go to a bar and they're just kind of going back and forth. And then one of his drawings comes to life and it freaks them out. I don't know. Just something more with them would have been fun too. So
Oh, yeah, they were fun because when his wife comes in, they're just peeking through the doorways on different angles.
They are, because they have two. They're on two different doors from different sides of the
Yeah.
screen, and then both of their heads kind of peek in at an angle, looking.
Yeah.
The way it was shot was really good too. What a fun
They were
episode.
great.
With that, let's get into correspondence. We do have some correspondence, everybody. Joseph Hill writes back on YouTube. This is regarding the ventriloquist episode. This is the one that Devin helped out with because you were gone that day, Godden.
Oh, yeah.
He says, it's a shame Godden had to miss this one, but Devin did a great job filling in. Devin, if you're watching, you did a great job, and yeah, we'll have you back sometime. And he says, as soon as he mentioned the Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead, I knew he had great taste. So, because Godden, for Devin's origin story, he had talked about how Evil Dead was his kind of introduction to horror.
Oh, that's just interesting.
So Joseph Hill also recommends the Ash versus the Evil Dead series. He says the movies are fantastic, but the series are even better in my opinion. Now, Joseph, I'm a huge fan of the Evil Dead and the Army of Darkness. Huge fan. I watched those a lot growing up. Those were the kind of movies where as soon as they were over, I would just rewind it and then it would just be playing again. Like I would literally watch those movies again and again. Like literally like 2 or 3 times a day. So I absolutely love those movies. I'm not convinced that the show is better than the movies, but I've never seen the shows. And to be honest with you, I'm always worried about watching TV shows made from horror movies. Like I haven't watched the Chucky series. I'm probably going to check out the Friday the 13th series. I don't know how much I'm going to like. I don't know. I'm very weary of that kind of stuff. But it does give me confidence to hear you say that you liked it so much. So maybe I do want to check those out. Have you watched the Evil Dead series?
I've only seen one Evil Dead, but it's not with Bruce Campbell. It's not Army of Darkness. It's Evil Dead Rise. I think it came out like 2018, 2019. Very gory, but I enjoyed that movie.
Oh, it's good. That's a good one too. Yeah. But yeah, the Bruce Campbell ones are absolutely the star attraction. And Oxy writes back on YouTube. This is also regarding the ventriloquist's dummy episode. Because this is a comment regarding Don Rickles, because Devin and I were kind of familiar with Don Rickles, but not super familiar. And we weren't sure if he was like an insult comic or not. And it turns out Don Rickles was known as Mr. Warmth. Ironically, he was absolutely an insult comic. So thanks, Oxy, for that bit of information. Thank you, Oxy. Thank you, Joseph, for your comments. Well, before we go, I do want to give some shout outs. I'm still listening. The Creeps of the Crypt and the Crypt Keepers podcast. I'm going to put their information down below. Make sure you check them out, especially if you're already a fan of Tales from the Crypt. I want you to check those guys out to also hear their perspectives. Still listening to Haddonfield Radio. I'm all caught up on Haddonfield Radio, though, so I can't listen to them like one after the other. I have to wait now for next month's episode. Yeah, their most recent episode, they just finished Jason X. So they went through the entire Halloween series, the entire Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're through Jason X. So the next one that I'm looking forward to is going to be the remake, the Friday the 13th remake. And then who knows what series you're going to go to next? I don't know. You'll have to tune in and find out. And the final one I want to give, I've been giving this shout out for a while now. Teach Her Amma is a Futurama podcast where they watch and review the Futurama show. So that's another one that I try to also give a shout out to. So go check that out. And next week, we're going to be here, same time, same place, to talk about season 2, episode 14, Lower Birth. Now, this is an episode that I'm already familiar with because remember way back in episode 0, we have our comics, and I happen to have a comic book of it was comic number 1 from Tales from the Crypt, which happens to feature the episode Lower Birth. So this is an episode that I've watched multiple times and I've read. So I'm very familiar with Lower Birth, looking forward to reviewing it. And if you want to follow along, make sure you watch the episode on your own before Godden and I return here next week to go on about it. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Until next week, stay creepy, my friends.
Well, how was that for a scream, Poison Ghoul?